Royal food served on the grandest tables is so much more than just a meal. Historically, these extravagant dishes were created to represent power. They also set fashions. Nowadays, royal food is all about showcasing the best of British. In celebration of royal food,
we know it's the Queen's recipe because we've got it in her own hand.
From the present and the past,
that is proper regal.
We recreate old family favourites.
Now, the Queen Mother had this really wicked trick with these.
What a mess.
We sample royal eating al fresco.
Oh, wow.
That is what you want.
And revisit the most extravagant times.
Pheasant, stag, turkey, salmon, oysters and turbot dressed in a lobster champagne sauce.
Unbelievable.
This is Royal Recipes. Hello, I'm Michael Buerk and welcome to Royal Recipes. This is Audley End, one of Britain's finest stately homes, built in the style of a royal palace and once owned by a king. In the splendour of the gardens, halls and kitchen of this grandest of country houses, we'll be recreating the food served at the highest royal tables. And it all starts here with this gem, a Royal Kitchen Maid's Cookbook, the only surviving recipe book of its kind in the Royal Archive. This is an exact copy of the original, which is kept at Windsor Castle. Inside, the recipes of Mildred Nichols, who worked at Buckingham Palace in the early 1900s. And for the first time in over 100 years, we'll be bringing these recipes back to life. This time, we cook food served up by the royal family outdoors at their picnics and garden parties. Today on Royal Recipes, Paul Ainsworth finds out what's cooking when Prince Philip takes over the barbecue.
It's a proper royal recipe, and we're going to do gaelic steak and a real royal favourite, whiskey sauce.
Historian Dr. Annie Gray reveals how Queen Victoria made the picnic fashionable.
For she was a fierce picnicker. She loved it.
And the Melton Mowbray baker preparing to make a picnic essential for the Queen.
Once a year, the Melton Mowbray Pie Society send a pie up to Balmoral for the Queen, and it's my turn this year to make it, so that'll be a big pie.
In the grounds of this stately home, we start with a royal barbecue.
We're roughing it here today at Audley End. With me, Michelin-starred chef Paul Ainsworth.
Hello, Michael. How are you?
I'm very well in my jacket.
Yes, you are. Yeah, you look lovely and warm, Michael. Lovely and warm.
They say nobody deters the Windsors from having a picnic in all weathers. And it can get really, really wintry in Balmoral, even in August, I think.
And they still will love to have a barbecue, won't they?
Yeah. Have you seen those home movies, the royal families and picnics? Everybody's pitching in, but Prince Philip is in charge.
I bet he is. Well, it's a manly thing. It's the
It
barbecue.
is a man thing. It's a man thing.
Do you feel manly right now? I do.
Well...
Right, let's get cooking.
OK.
OK, we're going to do a real favourite royal recipe, especially of Prince Philip's.
This is his signature picnic dish. What does he cook?
We're going to do gaelic steaks, potatoes in the bag, which is really, really nice, everything on the barbecue, and a real royal favourite, whiskey sauce. OK? Would you like a tipple while we cook?
Well, I might, yeah.
Right, if we get cracking straight away, we're going to take a little tinfoil bag here, and this I really recommend doing. It's delicious. So we're just going to put some oil over the potatoes.
And you've got some butter in there as well?
Yeah, some butter in there as well. Some seasoning, salt and pepper.
Yeah.
And basically, the potatoes are going to steam themselves. Just tip them in like that. Give them a good ruffle around so you get all of that seasoning in. And then just literally fold the bag like that.
Pretty simple, isn't it?
Pretty simple and straight on. And get those on literally an hour and a half, couple of hours before you're going to cook. And what's going to, literally, the coals are going to lovely and warm, and all those potatoes are just going to roast in that butter, the oil, the seasoning, garlic, beautiful. Next, the steaks. Let's get the steak on. We just put lightly, a little bit of oil on that steak, like that, OK? Lightly season. Yeah. All right, crush that right the way over the steak. And what the steaks we're using here, Michael, are sirloin. It's kind of that middle sort of steak where you've got that lovely eye of the meat, nice fat content going around, beautiful. Straight on, nice hottest part of the barbecue. You need white heat, like proper good heat.
And that's the secret, isn't it?
That is the secret. That is the secret. If you haven't got that heat, then it's no good. A little bit more oil just on top for when we turn it over. Okay? And some seasoning.
There we go. The Royals often do this. They load up the Land Rover, don't they? And they're up on the moors above Balmoral.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I suppose it's a taste of ordinary life for them to a degree, not being waited on hand, foot and finger, being a family.
Yes. Well, do you know what? Like you say, taking a barbecue on a picnic and stuff, what better way to enjoy a day, especially like this?
Yeah.
So we've got our steaks on, we've got our potatoes on, and now we're going to make our whiskey sauce. So with our sauce, we just need not as much of a heavy heat as what we've got here with the steaks. We're just going to have our shallots.
They're just diced shallots, those.
Diced shallots. Right, we're going to have a little rearrange. See our sauce now?
Yeah.
They've got that lovely heat into the sauce. This is such a great way to cook. So we're going to move these are our potatoes that are ready. Going to move those potatoes to the front.
Yeah.
Right, for our whiskey sauce, really, really simple. Got some lovely mushrooms, sliced chestnut mushrooms.
You're not going to cook those for long, I don't imagine.
No, they're going to... It's a very quick sauce.
Yep.
So we're just going to get those nice and... get them coated in that lovely shallot mixture. So we can season all the way through, so we've got that lovely flavour coming up all the way through the dish. Now, you'll see with these steaks, just have a look under here, Michael. Ready? When we turn over? Look at that.
Oh, wow.
That is what you want, that lovely caramelisation.
Yeah. It's got a kind of real lovely brown crust on the fat, hasn't it?
And I can tell this one's not quite ready for turning over because you see, when it's ready, it will come off the bars nice and easy.
Yeah.
Like that. And then again, we don't move it, we just leave it there and let it do its thing.
Yep.
Okay, meanwhile, we've got this delicious sauce. So you can see the juices start to come out the mushrooms and into the sauce, and we're going to reduce those down.
They have some quite funny incidents when they're on these royal picnics, you know. There was one occasion, I think, back in the 60s, where they were on the moors above Balmoral, having the picnic, and some Scots guardsman was taking some horses to water them down the loch or something. And he saw these people. I suppose he must have thought they were trespassers or something, didn't realise who they were, and just drove the horses straight through the royal picnic.
Seriously?
Yeah. He was locked up in the tower, of course.
Yeah.
I don't think he was. I think they thought it was quite a joke.
Can you imagine when he found out who it was?
Yes, exactly, yes.
Now, those mushrooms, if you just have a smell of that, Michael, where you've got the thyme, the garlic, the mushrooms, the shallots, it's such a classic sauce.
Oh, it's lovely.
We're kind of referencing here sort of like a steak Diane type sauce. So, really nice.
And how much do you cook these steaks? What do you think?
Well,
do you like them rare? I mean, it's a matter of taste, is it?
Yeah, just about medium rare, so it's nice and pink.
Because it looks quite well done.
But that's the surface, and that's what we want, that flavour, we want that texture. We don't want it looking bland and sort of like grey. We want it caramelised, and that's the sugars in the meat caramelising. OK, next. A drab of whiskey.
Yeah.
Is that enough for you?
No, a little more, if you wouldn't mind. Well, it burns off, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're just going to reduce that whiskey out.
Yeah.
And what we want is that pure whiskey flavour and just burning off some of that alcohol.
It,
yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? Absolutely lovely.
Come this way.
Yeah. Right, we're ready. Steaks off. We're just going to rest those now, Michael.
That's important, isn't
it? Like that, absolutely.
This resting business.
Really, really important.
It's what we amateurs don't do.
Move our... Yeah,
just want to get your teeth into it.
Yeah. And I think it's because people think, oh, well, then it goes cold.
Cold, yeah.
Stock in.
That's beef stock, yeah?
That's beef stock going in. And we're literally just going to bring that to the boil. Let it reduce slightly. And we're there. We're going to add a little bit of cream at the end, just to... They like a lot of cream and butter. They're quite rich recipes, the royal recipes.
It's a wonder they're not all looking like Edward VII.
Yeah.
Really.
And there we are.
Makes a lot of washing up, doesn't it? The Queen does the washing up in a stream, apparently, quite often.
In the stream? Love that. That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
The royal servants like that idea, but there you go. It's quite a sight, quite a thought, isn't it?
So now that's going to come to add the boil. We're going to add a little bit of cream, not much. So we don't want it to be too rich and heavy, and we want that lovely colour.
Oh, look at that. Lovely colour, isn't it?
And it's just literally about getting that nice, not too thick, but like a nice body to the sauce. And I mean, to do that outside, potatoes are done, steaks are resting, sauce is coming to a lovely simmer.
Yeah.
It's just
actually, it's only a few minutes, isn't it?
It's only a few minutes.
Yeah.
Just a little waiting game now, and we can eat. Right, I'm going to grab my plate.
Yep, my plate.
Yeah, my plate. You're not having any. Right. Look at this.
Oh, yeah,
beautifully. That is going to be so lovely and tender and pink. Sauce I'm going to leave. This is the bit that's fun as well. Ready?
Yep.
Grab the potatoes, stab them with the tin foil, straight in like that, and look at those.
Oh, they're terrific,
Look
aren't they?
at those. Yeah, little beautiful mini roast potatoes, just cooked in that butter.
Yep.
Absolutely delicious. So I'm just going to put some of those on the side.
I love
Grab
the way
our
you do that
sauce.
so carefully, you know. You take a lot of care of these things.
And just a little bit, just on the top. I don't want to go all over the steak. I just want to put more on the plate as well, because I don't want to lose that lovely caramelisation that we've got. We'll move those
out of the way.
Over there, out of the way, and there we go. Right, Michael, get stuck in.
I will. I will. Oh, look at that. Oh, beautiful. Red on the inside.
Yeah.
Caramelised on the outside.
Is that good? Look, oh my God, nice and fluffy, roasted, beautiful. You forget how cold it is with food that good, don't you?
I do, yeah. Oh, it's great. Go on, have a go.
Fantastic.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to have some of the
sauce. The mushrooms, the richness, amazing.
Oh, yeah. Right, you can do the washing up. Oh, you just need a stream.
Before I do the washing up, I'm going for a run. I am freezing.
Great. Well done, Paul. This is brilliant.
Pleasure.
Barbecue steak, Prince Philip style. A picnic dish to suit all-weather al fresco dining.
The passion for picnicking has been around for hundreds of years, but it was that royal trendsetter Queen Victoria who made it fashionable.
Historian Dr. Annie Gray is at Chiswick House in West London. It was built by the Duke of Devonshire and has vast landscape gardens. This love of the outdoors by the Georgians, then by the Victorians, laid the path for the picnics we know today.
Gardens like this were really popular in the 18th century. They were spaces of sociability. They were places where the aristocracy and their friends could come together undisturbed by the hoi polloi, where they could play games, paint, read books and eat.
Mealtimes were changing at the end of the Georgian period. The fashion for luncheon was taking off, and this new midday meal was well suited to the appetite for al fresco dining.
Unlike today's picnics, you wouldn't sit on the ground and get dirty. No, you would have a table with a gorgeous cloth, with servants bringing you baskets full of food, both hot and cold, champagne virtually on tap, and it would be a marvellous, wonderful occasion where you could look at your garden and think to yourself, I own this. Isn't it just amazing?
Through the 18th century, the Dukes of Devonshire hosted lavish garden parties in the grounds at Chiswick. But by the following century, the property had been let.
One of the most famous tenants was Albert Edward, the Prince of Wales, later Edward VII. And in 1873, he held a particularly extraordinary garden party here for the Shah of Persia, who was visiting England at the time. The Shah's visit was hotly anticipated in Britain, and the party was a resounding success. The newspapers of the time reported that anyone who was anyone was here. There were even 3 giraffes brought in so that visitors and partiers could feast their eyes on them. Queen Victoria was quite rude about it, but then she tended to be fairly rude about a lot of the things that Bertie got up to.
Victoria may not have approved of her son's parties, but she did have a passion for al fresco dining, and the growing middle class soon followed the Queen's lead.
It's to Queen Victoria herself that we really owe the popularity of it going forward, for she was a fierce picnicker. She loved it. From Balmoral Castle, she would go off into the Highlands and perhaps fry up a fish that she'd caught that morning from the lake. The newspapers, then as now, reported on the doings of the royal family all the time, and so pictures and reports of Queen Victoria's activities circulated, making picnicking truly the thing to do.
It became so much a part of life that the doyenne of the Victorian establishment, Mrs. Beeton, thought it necessary to include a section on picnicking in her best-selling cookery book.
She said, "One of the pleasantest forms of entertainment is a well-arranged picnic, if only a fine day be selected, while nothing is calculated to give greater dissatisfaction than a badly managed one. To have chosen the wrong people, even one or two who are not likely to make themselves agreeable, to have given people wrong seats in the various vehicles, or to have too many ladies in the party are all often fatal errors."
As well as giving warnings about the guest list, she even created a sample menu for a picnic for 40 people. It included 2 racks of lamb, 4 roast fowl, 6 lobsters, and 4 dozen cheesecakes.
Then we come to that perennial picnic favourite today, the Scotch egg. Fortnum and Mason claim they invented it in the 1730s, and while they may not have done, it certainly seems that that was around the time they came into being. One of my favourites is sausage rolls. The Victorians would simply take bread dough and stuff the sausage meat right within it before sealing it up and cooking it. So again, you could just pop it in a pocket and off you go to the countryside.
Royal picnics weren't always outdoor affairs. King Edward VII in particular loved to take an absolutely whopping picnic along to the theatre or to the opera. 12 courses. He was particularly keen, Paul, I think, on cold meats.
Cold meats,
And
yes.
particularly keen on tongue.
Now,
Not a
don't
fan.
be put off. Oh, it's lovely, it's delicious, and it's worth the effort.
It's been in an animal's mouth.
It doesn't. You eat the leg that's been on the floor. It's not. It's worth it. I promise.
We're not talking about 12 courses here now, are we?
no.
We're talking about tongue for a modern picnic.
We are, and we're going to do a proper hearty roasted tongue sandwich. So the first thing we do, we're going to put our pan onto the heat. We're going to add a little bit of oil. And when that oil gets hot, we're going to add a little bit of butter. What we've got here is an ox tongue.
It's huge.
It is huge, and it's been brined. By brining, I mean we've put it in a salt solution, so actually it's firmed up a bit and got that lovely, wonderful flavour, the salt running through it. We've then just cooked it in a bouillon of vegetables and cooked that for about 2 hours. Right, so let's go straight in. So we're going to take a nice slice. So we take this end piece off here. If you see in there, Michael, it's really meaty. I think people think it's going to be a bit slimy and a bit mushy in texture.
It's not bad, is it? But it's very different.
It's lovely.
Different look to ham, isn't it?
Yeah, but it is like ham, because what we've done with it by brining it and sort of where we salted it and stuff. So, butter.
Oh, wow.
Now, no need to season it. And this is where it comes alive, and this is why, you know, this is how I think people see it and just think it's this cold, horrible meat. It doesn't need to be like that. Get our butter nice and nutty.
No need to season it because it's already been brined.
No, because we've got that brine. Yeah. Now just sit both slices just like that. Back onto the heat. We're going to turn that heat down a little bit and let it do its thing. So we're just roasting, getting that lovely flavour. Meanwhile, we're going to move over to here and we're going to make our own mayonnaise. Ever made mayonnaise before? From scratch.
No. Get it out of a bottle, I do.
2 egg yolks, spoonful of Dijon mustard. Yeah. English is also nice, but I know the royals like things from France, don't they? A little bit of white wine vinegar. And this is what we call here, we're just basically making almost like a sabayon base, OK? We're just emulsifying the egg yolks, the vinegar and the mustard.
Edward VII liked mayonnaise. The first course, actually consomme he'd have for the first course, then lobster mayonnaise, then tongue, then lots of other cold meats, then trout, then lamb, then duck, then 4 puddings. And he'd have 30 guests, servants, 400 plates. That's what I call a picnic.
It's so rich as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So...
Well, he had a 48-inch waist, I think, when he was in his early 20s.
I bet he did.
Early 20s.
So, just here, Michael.
Yeah.
We're adding in our oil. And we're adding it in nice and slowly, not too quickly. Can you see it starting to thicken? Yeah. You can hear the sound with the blades going around. You can just hear the sound changing. Right, we're just going to stop.
Just a matter of interest, why are you actually roasting, frying the thing? Because, I mean, you've brined it, you've boiled it. Why are you cooking it twice?
Because you flavour. Look, I mean, look at it. It's caramelised. But now, doesn't that look more appetising? I think more people will try it if they just kind of actually I think this is how people know it, this kind of boiled, cold tongue.
On a slab, yeah.
A slab, exactly. Now we're going to build our sandwich.
OK.
So we've got some wonderful sourdough bread. Use your favourite bread, rye bread, brown bread, white bread, whatever you want. Now, rather than just buttering it, our fat is going to be our mayonnaise. So we're going to put this wonderful, lovely mayonnaise, just smear it all over.
It's a lovely colour,
It's gorgeous. It's a light rapeseed oil, another great British ingredient. So
it's a nicer colour than the stuff you get out of the bottle.
Both sides.
Even if it doesn't taste as good, it looks nice.
It looks nice. Yeah, it looks nice. Trust me, it tastes a lot better. Right, we're going to have, with our mayonnaise, we're going to take our tongue.
Yep.
Straight out, OK? And lie that in our sandwich, like so. For me now, I think people like... It looks like to me, it looks like a bacon sandwich. Delicious.
It fits. Right? It fits.
It does.
Cinders.
Absolutely. A little bit of that lovely roasting butter over the top. I mean, already just like that, you'd want to put that in.
Certainly would.
Hammer it in
my
half,
mouth,
yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Stilton, wonderful British cheese. We're just going to take some of that Stilton, just break it, just crumble it like that. And with that hot tongue, it'll just start to warm that Stilton. I don't want it melted, because I want the Stilton for texture. OK?
Yeah.
Over the top.
It's rich, though, isn't it?
Oh, it's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Next, some gherkins. And exactly what you just said there, it's rich. So we're just going to cut through with some lovely acidity from these lovely pickled gherkins. Do you like gherkins?
I love them.
I do.
Absolutely
Could eat them just like this.
Yeah, me too.
All right. On with our gherkins.
They really make a sandwich, don't they?
They do. Absolutely delicious. Look at this. Watercress. OK?
This is your healthy vegetable.
This is the healthy vegetable, my favourite. This is the bit that makes it all right.
Yeah. I know.
OK?
Gives you permission, doesn't it?
Nice and peppery.
Yep.
Like that. A little bit more of the oil.
Oh, yes.
Over the top. We're just going to go with a little bit of cracked pepper over the top of this sandwich.
OK, stop fiddling. Let's eat
that like that.
Yep.
Yes, and here it is. Look at that.
Don't put it too far away.
Get stuck in, Michael.
Right. Here we go. There's no elegant way to do this, is there, Paul?
There isn't. Let's go.
No, I don't think my mouth's big enough. Oh.
Converted to tongue?
I am actually, yeah.
That's beautiful, isn't it?
The texture's great. And the sourdough is quite a contrast, isn't it? I think it works particularly well with sourdough. But your mayonnaise is lovely, and the blue cheese lifts it, and the gherkins cut through it. I think King Edward would have liked this.
This is what he needed on his picnic.
Yeah, exactly.
Lobster mayonnaise and all that fat.
He would have sat back, he would have patted his belly, and he said, "That's proper regal."
Love that. Love that.
It's your catchphrase, Paul. It's your catchphrase.
A tasty sandwich for a modern picnic. The first elegant outdoor meals were hunting feasts, and that inspired another picnic essential. The Melton Mowbray Pie may be named after the Leicestershire town, but it owes its origins to the area's famous hunting grounds. Royalty and aristocracy flocked here in the 1700s and liked the look of what their servants were eating. Local baker Mary Dickinson stepped in, and the pork pie was created, the perfect al fresco snack. Head chef at Dickinson and Morris is Stephen Hallam.
Hunting happens in autumn and winter, and when all the gentry arrived with their horses, 10 or 20 apiece, they needed people to look after them, so they turned to the labourers who had no work in autumn and winter in the fields, so they became grooms, and their staple diet was a lump of meat, crudely wrapped in pastry, thrown in the fire to bake. So all hunting folks saw their grooms eating mucky bits of pork. They wanted something more elaborate, and it was our founder's great-grandmother, Mary Dickinson, came up with the idea of using a block of mould to create a pastry case, fill it with meat, put a lid on the top, and put the jelly in when it comes out of the oven. And these pies were the snack that would bounce along all day in the saddlebags. It was eaten on horseback during the chase, and when these people got home, after the season, they had a taste for the pies, and that's when sort of the supply rose to meet the demand.
The town's hunting heyday was in Victorian times, when more pie makers opened, including Mrs. King's Bakery in 1853. Their recipe has been passed down through generations. Paul Hartland is the head baker.
This is just a basic hot boiling water pastry and pork shoulder, salt and pepper added to it. That's all, nothing else. At one time, the majority of the pig would have been used to make a pie. Now, we just buy pork shoulder. If you was going to have a roast Sunday dinner, you'd have a roast shoulder of pork, and that's what's in the pie. These pies will be baked for exactly an hour, and then they're left to cool, and then we jelly the pies with the natural pork jelly. Perfect.
The pork pie endures, as does the popularity of the area with the royal family, especially Prince Charles, who was spotted by baker Paul in the 1980s.
Early one morning, I was up and about walking the dog, and I saw all the hounds and the horses coming towards me, and I thought, wow, this looks interesting. I walked up, and there was Prince Charles. So, yeah, that was pretty cool.
The Melton Mowbray Pie now has protected geographical status. Only pies made in the town can be given its name. And it's still very much in demand by the royal family.
Once a year, the Melton Mowbray Pork Pie Society send a pie up to Balmoral for the Queen, which is great, and it's my turn this year to make it, so we're looking forward to that. So that'll be a big pie, a £5 pie, which will be that big, and that'll all be made by hand, and that'll be sent up there, and our name will be on it, representing the Melton Mowbray Pork Pie Association. It's a thing that I'm quite confident of doing, of making, so I just hope they enjoy it, really, and that's the main thing. This is what we end up with. Beautiful. 25 years we've had pork pie every week. And that's why we look so slim.
Nowadays, the grandest of picnics are held by the Queen in the gardens of Buckingham Palace, where she hosts 3 garden parties every year.
Grant Harold here has been butler to Prince Charles, Prince William, Prince Harry, has not only worked at garden parties, but been a guest of them. How have they changed over the years?
Obviously, originally, there were more the kind of Queen Victoria's garden parties. You had diplomats, you had earls, you had dukes, where today you get people from all walks of life, people that have given something or done something for the country. You've got military, you've got charity organisations. So it's kind of changed to how it was, as I say, over 100 years ago.
So they're a lot less formal now as well?
I wouldn't say you still have to obviously wear the correct attire. The dress codes are still quite strict. You know, gentlemen wear like morning dress, lounge suits, or maybe military uniform. Ties are still required. Ladies can now these days, they don't need to wear like a formal day dress. They can wear a trouser suit. So it's formal, but it has relaxed a little bit. But the protocol's still there. The timings are very much still in place that were many years ago. And I have an example here of a couple of invitations. This is an invitation that I had recently.
Oh, this is yours?
That's my invitation. And then here we've got one from the 1960s. I think it was 1964.
What goes on then? What goes on?
So you arrive at 3 o'clock. The royal family arrive about 4, and the Queen arrives in the West Terrace to play the national anthem, so you know that she's about to walk down. You'll suddenly see these lines form, these 2 kind of lines, of where she's going to walk from the West Terrace down to the royal tea tent, and you can actually stand there, and if you're lucky, you might actually get to meet her, but hopefully without holding out a tea and a sandwich. The idea is to have that quickly.
And the food is tea, sandwiches, cakes.
That's kind of how you can have. Some people they might have the cakes first and then the sandwiches, but I'm kind of always saying people don't have the sandwiches first and then have the cakes. But do that before you meet the Queen, because otherwise you might not actually get to meet the Queen. You might miss out on that opportunity.
And are all these garden parties exactly the same?
I mean, the thing is, the kind of basis, the way it's set up is the same. You've got the large tea tent, you've got the diplomatic tent, you've got the royal tea tent, you've got 2 military bands, you've got the gentlemen ushers. All these kind of traditions have been around for
But her 90th birthday party was a bigger
90th birthday party was very, very different, obviously, because you had the Prince did a private party for her, and then you had the party on the Mall, the picnic on the Mall, which was a fantastic event, and many thousands joined her and had a picnic.
Logistically speaking, this must be
pretty big affairs.
They are. I mean, you're talking about 27,000 cups of tea, 20,000 sandwiches, 20,000 cakes. So there's quite a bit actually done for these events, and a lot of planning. The planning is 6 months in advance, so they are quite big events.
Does the Queen have tea herself, or does she just mingle with her guests?
Once she's obviously met some of the guests for about 30 minutes, she has tea in the royal tea tent, and that's obviously looked after by her own staff. But the actual garden party itself, it's these days it's catering. Since George V, we've had catering come in to do those kind of things. In the days of Queen Victoria, it was actually done by her chefs, but again, it was very different. As we said, there'd be the diplomatics, the earls, the dukes, and it was a much more lavish affair.
Now it's the outside caterers.
Now it's the outside caterers.
The royal family enjoy growing and serving their own produce. At garden parties, the apple juice comes from the Sandringham orchards. Prince Charles is continuing that tradition, but sometimes he needs a little bit of help, as a farmer from Wales discovered, rather to his surprise.
John Morris and his wife Margaret run a family farm in Crickhowell in Powys. For the last 9 years, they've been producing an award-winning apple juice from their historic orchard.
Most farms in this area have orchards, and they have old orchards. But very few farms have orchards of this size with such old trees in it. And the reason for that is when my grandfather moved here, he saw it as potential so that he could sell apples rather than perhaps grabbing out trees and just growing grass for animals.
30 varieties of British apples are grown here. Some are very rare indeed.
This is a lovely apple called Annie Elizabeth. Annie Elizabeth originated in, I think, the 18th century. It was a person who propagated it, named after his two daughters, Annie and Elizabeth. Unfortunately, both of them had died with TB, and he wanted to remember them by, so it's called an Annie Elizabeth apple.
John and his wife specialise in making apple juice from single varieties. Their expertise is known throughout the area. So much so that Prince Charles contacted John for help with the apples grown at his neighbouring orchard in Wales.
About 8 years ago now, we had a phone call saying, would you come and identify some apples in a orchard near Llandovery? We didn't know it was his orchard at the time. We went down and identified some of the apples in there. Some are more difficult to identify. And following on, he asked us to press the apples for him. He obviously liked the apple juice because we've been doing it ever since, and now the pear juice for him as well. What we have here actually are pears from the Prince of Wales's home in Highgrove, and also pears from his farm in Wales that were picked yesterday evening.
The fruit is picked and brought to the farm where it's washed, broken into smaller pieces, and then put into the press.
And now we have to press the juice out of them, but when we put it under this 19-ton press, you're surprised how much comes out. So I'll switch it on now.
Once pressed, the juice is stored overnight in tanks so that the sediment settles before bottling. Then it's pasteurised in warm water. This kills the yeast and prevents alcohol production. Prince Charles came to John and Margaret's farm to see for himself how production was going.
The Prince came July 2014. It's very exciting, very strange, and he was lovely, very ordinary, made you feel at ease, and he was genuinely interested. And you could see that he just wasn't there for the sake of being there, that he was interested because we are a small farm trying to make a living. It was just an honour for him to support us and to support local businesses around here because there are a lot of food and drink places in the locality.
The following year, their juice was awarded the Royal Warrant, the first producers in Wales to achieve this distinction. And they've even enjoyed drinking their juice in a royal setting.
We were invited to one of the summer drinks parties, and we were invited a few years ago to a winter one as well, which was really lovely. And our apple juice was featured there, so that was one of the reasons why we were there, because we supplied the royal household.
This boutique family business has come a long way since John received that plea for help from the royal farmer 30 miles down the road.
The guy at the end of the phone said, well, it might be worth your while. So anyway, we went down looked at the orchard, which is a very nice orchard, and then I just happened to say, or he happened to tell me who owned the farm, and the rest is history, so to speak.
But when he came back, it was interesting. He said, "Do you know where I've been?" And I went, "The pub." So he went, "No." So I sort of don't get too excited about a lot of things, but I was sort of quite taken back by that. And I was quite honoured as well, I suppose. So that was the start of, you know, something very nice.
Mildred Nichols' recipe book from the early 1900s features recipes for several apple puddings. They include the perfectly portable, picnic-friendly apple tart, or tarte aux pommes.
Apple juice? It looks nice, but no alcohol in it, though.
No.
Not cider.
Not cider, is it? No.
But it's probably quite nice anyway. A lot of those picnics, you know, must have been prepared by Mildred Nichols, who was a kitchen maid in Buckingham Palace in the early years of the last century, and whose fabulous old recipe book is an absolute treasure trove of royal recipes.
It's incredible.
And not surprisingly, quite a lot of them apple recipes. There's one here, look. Tarte de pomme à la Larousse. What's your take on this?
My take on this is I'm doing it exactly how Mildred did it, because when I read the recipe, I loved it, and I think that her techniques and what she was doing was really current now. Starting with these apples. So what we've got here, Michael, is the Bramley apple. Yeah. So we've got hundreds of varieties in Great Britain, but the Bramley, everyone knows it, and it's a great apple. And it's great because it cooks down, and she's cooked it with muscovado sugar, some butter, and some
sugar?
lemon.
Is that,
yeah.
It looks like demerara, it looks like brown sugar.
No, it's muscovado, so it's darker brown. Demerara's a bit lighter.
Yeah.
Again, Mildred's pastry, so it's just a lovely, simple, sweet pastry that we've just blind baked, all right?
What does that mean?
What that means is that we've cooked the pastry so it's already a nice biscuit texture, ready to go in just to finish off, so we're not putting it into raw pastry. So we just get this wonderful apple mix.
It's wonderfully slurpy, isn't it?
Oh, it's delicious. It's got lovely acidity, it's nice and treacly, and that's why when I saw it, I just absolutely love this recipe. So we're just going to smear that in.
You say we've got hundreds of varieties. Prince Charles actually grows 1,000 varieties, apparently. I saw red ones.
Yeah, rare and really rare apples.
He's part of a project to preserve them, because I think some of them are in danger of dying out, aren't they, these British varieties?
Yeah, and it's a shame. Now, what was really interesting, I've never seen this before, is Mildred then did like a lemon curd, but it's not got so much lemon in as what we would know as a lemon curd. So we're going to start with the butter in the pan. And we don't want it to get too hot. We just literally want to melt it. Yep. So that's a nice little tip. Dice it up. Don't just add in a whole block of butter.
Because it melts quicker?
Yeah, absolutely. And just all over the pan as opposed to in the centre. We're going to take one lemon, OK? And we're just going to do the juice of one lemon, eggs and sugar.
With your old trusty spoon.
That's it, my old trusty spoon. You don't need no juicer. Like that. You get all of that out of there, like so. And then we're going to add into there as well, Michael, our corn flour. That just stabilises it. And I've never seen a recipe like this before. It was really, really fascinating going into it and putting the lemon curd on top like that, of that wonderful... And apples and lemon, what could be better?
Why is that so novel? The combination seems, you know, fairly ordinary, obvious one.
It's more of the combination of the curd. Normally you would have curd kind of made and in something, so to have it and then bake it was quite intriguing for me. So in here we've got our lemon juice and our butter. Now we're going to add in our eggs. So we've got 3 egg yolks.
Royal brown eggs, are they?
Royal brown eggs. And 1 egg.
Why do you do it like that, then?
So we only want the white of 1 egg, but we want the yolks because they add that lovely richness. Yeah. OK? Corn flour in. And our sugar.
Oh, plenty of sugar.
Plenty of sugar.
Plenty of sugar.
It wouldn't be a Mildred recipe if it didn't have plenty of sugar and plenty of butter. And just over a low heat, you basically just cook all these ingredients together, and what happens is the lemon juice then just starts to thicken. It's kind of like a custard curd.
Yeah. Again, a lovely colour.
A lovely colour. And the thing with curd is, like a custard, your fat is the butter, as opposed to custard with it being kind of cream and milk.
Why do you think it's called à la Russe? I mean, this is quintessentially English. It's about apples, and the royals have been growing apples since the days of Henry VIII. I mean, why call it à la Russe? What have the Russians got to do with it?
I just think all Russian were quite fashionable back then, and I think sort of as we do in restaurants, service à la Russe, as opposed to bringing all the food to the table on a big banquet. It's one course at a time.
Service à la Russe, yeah.
Because, like you say, quintessentially, this dish does not get any more British.
Yeah, I mean, how many apples are there in Siberia, you wonder?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, can you see our mixture's just starting to thicken?
Yeah.
And basically, we're just going to pour
You just pour it on the top?
All over the top. And it's such a fascinating recipe. And then we just literally just smooth it.
Just make sure it's all covered.
Corners. Absolutely, like that.
Oh, yeah.
And that is why you blind bake it, because that won't be that long in the oven.
No.
So if you would, that pastry would still be raw.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you could just take that to the oven for me.
Put Mildred down.
Put Mildred down. And out there, you should find one that's already done.
OK, I'll pop this in the oven and bring the other one back.
Thank you. I'll have a tidy up.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael.
All right, see you in a minute, chef. Oh, look at this. Symphony in gold, isn't it? And the top has gone beautifully crinkly.
And just see the apples.
Yeah, the apples started to poke through.
Absolutely. Right.
Yes.
And exactly like what you said, just kind of perfect for a picnic.
You can imagine them putting it in the hamper, can't you?
Yeah. Delicious.
Yeah.
So we're just going to literally finish it with some icing sugar just over the top, just for a little bit more Mildred sweetness.
Oh, yeah. Snowing icing sugar.
And do you know what? It's fantastic making these old recipes, and I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. Mildred's looking down at you, you know, and smiling, I think.
I hope so, because it's been an absolute pleasure to cook these old recipes. It really has.
Well, here's to Mildred, and here's to us. Come on,
would you like a slice?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Just grab the plate?
Yeah. Come on. Now, do it neatly now.
I'll try my best, Michael.
Yeah. Oh, look at the way the knife goes through that. A generous helping, I'd say. Very nice.
Okay.
Yep. Oh, look at that. Look at it from the edge. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Right.
Get stuck in.
No, after you.
No, go on.
No, all right. I always go for that bit rather than getting any of the crust. Why is that? Oh, hang on. Oh, the pastry's good too. Ooh. Oh, that's really good. It really bursts in your mouth, doesn't it?
It's got lovely sweetness, pastry, and like you say, that you got that lovely, almost custardy texture with the apple. Yeah. Another little tip, if you wanted to get rid of some of that little sweetness, would be to kind of glaze the top with a blowtorch.
Oh, right, just...
under top, because then the sugar would kind of turn slightly bitter and would go really nice with that sweetness.
That would be rather good, wouldn't it?
But that is stunning. I love that recipe so much.
Well done, Mildred. It was Mildred, not you, wasn't it?
It was all Mildred. I just merely showcased it.
OK. Well, it's time to wrap up that picnic rug, put everything back in the hamper. Okay. Our royal picnics are over, aren't they? See you next time.